How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another live episode of Tier Talk. We are here to answer your questions, and we hope you guys keep those questions coming. That's the key because the dialogue here is really centered on the interaction that we have with the audience. But before, I know we got people coming in, so let me get these sponsors done. Just get them out there. So we have American Military University. This live dialogue is sponsored you by the American Military University. If you guys get a chance, please check out American Military University. It's a great online school, very supportive of what we do in corrections, very supportive of what we do here on Tier Talk. So again, American Military University. We also have Guardian RFID from inmate tracks to cell checks. From inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based business and artificial intelligence. Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities of every size. Visit guardianrfid.com for more information. And we also have my new sponsor, Sheia. Now, guys, check out the spelling on this. It's CEIA. CEIA USA. Tier Talk is sponsored by Sheia USA, CEIA. And it's the world's leading weapons, cell phone, and contraband detection system manufacturer for corrections. For more information, contact Joe Vasquez at 440-561-7615. He's a subject matter expert, and he's passionate about our industry, and he will take good care of you. And guys, Inmate Manipulation Decoded is now available. Link to that is in the description. And working on my new book called The Corrections Daily Reader. A little behind, but I'm getting there. I'm on March 17th and, coming up with topics every day. Trying. All right. So, whoa. I didn't even know. She must have just snuck in. I thought she was asleep. Connie, I'm just really taken aback here. Connie, introduce yourself. I don't think the live audience knows you.
Oh, get out of here. Hi, everybody. Connie Alleyne. I am the founder and president of the Civilian Corrections Academy. I'm the podcast host of The Fly Behind the Wall and the author of The Cage Was Her Cocoon. So, of course, Anthony has been all day making sure I know we're doing a live tonight. Hey, guys, I go to sleep at night. The last live they did, I peaked on, they were on for at over 2 hours. Sometimes I can't hang, so forgive me.
Well, look at this. Hey, hi, Anthony. Hi, Russ. Oh, my God, Connie. There it is. That's why we have her on. What's up, Brad? Duty Ron. What's up, Polly? How you doing? What's up from Yuma, Arizona? We also have Joe Pompano. What's up, Joe? We have 616 Love. She's happy she caught the beginning. We should know her. Guardian RFID in the house. Connie, you should remember 616 Love. She was the one that was breaking out of the gang culture and stuff and making a complete transition and turnaround. And she's just, very appreciative of what we offered her. But also, I think the true hero is her. I mean, to think that she trusted us enough to take our advice. That's the scary part. Hey, Russ, what's up, brother? What's going on?
Hey, I'm just glad to be here. It's great to be on a live with Connie for the first time in a little bit. Yeah. And I'm just busy working all the time, man. I got a bunch of new things that are happening out at my jail, which I'm not an officer, not a sergeant anymore. It's all private work, but it's still good work, and it's really an education to see it from a different perspective.
All right, so while we get in, guys, feel free to ask whatever questions you want, but I got a few poll questions I want to ask, and I want to have a little fun here. So, guys, we could put the percentage in the comments, and, of course, Connie and Russ, you got a microphone, so you can speak your percentages into the screen, and StreamYard will record it for use later date. Okay, so first question. Now, mind you, in a percentage game, it's up to 100%, okay? As a correction officer or correctional staff, has an inmate suicide ever affected you? What's the percentage you think they said yes? Connie, go first. Out of 100%.
90%.
Okay, so you're saying 90% said that they were affected by a inmate suicide.
Yes.
Okay. Now I posted this up today, so I only have 149 votes on this one. So Russ, do you believe the percentage is higher or lower?
Okay,
Yes, we are
I'm gonna go with this. I'm gonna actually give a much lower percentage, but my way of thinking is the actual numbers of staff who've been exposed to a suicide might be pretty low. I'm gonna say 35%.
Okay, so here's what I got. So that's 35% that you're saying have been affected by an inmate suicide?
Yeah.
Okay, so question was again, as a correctional officer or correctional staff, has an inmate suicide ever affected you? 30% said yes.
Oh man, I was
70,
way.
70% said no. So,
is that just the right answer on the platform?
what do you mean? That's what they say on YouTube. It's anonymous YouTube comments. It's got to be.
No, see the reason that I was thinking that is, I mean, I know we have a lot of officers out there, but I know it's not 100% of people that have even been exposed to it. So I was thinking that probably not very many have, been in that situation or close to it. And so that's how I kind of, framed it in my mind.
Well, I think it could have an effect on somebody. Obviously, I've seen it have an effect on somebody. I've had a few
I was just thinking that, I think we're expected to be tough and for things to not have an effect on us. And so depending on the platform where that question was asked, folks may not necessarily feel comfortable to say, yes, I was affected by an inmate suicide. Because I'm just assuming that whoever answered the question must have had some exposure to a suicide.
Well, even Steve said he was involved with several suicides, 11 to be exact. First one really stuck with me, being that inmate was a juvenile, and I still see it now and every day. Yeah, I actually did. That's going to come out in my daily reader about how it could affect, but I believe it's human nature to be affected by it. I don't care how you value, how people may look at the life and how they value it. The point is, when you have someone doing that in front of you, all you see at that moment is a human life, So let me do one more real quick before we get to the questions, guys. Now this has 337 votes. Okay. Oh, by the way, the platform I posted this on, especially for the inmate suicide one, is the Civilians Corrections Academy platform.
No, it wasn't.
It was the Tear Talk YouTube channel. And see, I agree with this though, guys. Real quick, I want to, because that's what my article does. If it doesn't affect your, are you even human? I want to show you guys something real quick. I won't read the whole quote. I just want to read the quote that someone sent me. This is from an officer, okay? And this is what they said about an inmate suicide. Inmate suicides can be emotionally draining. It has to be in some shape or form. You may not experience sadness or grief, but it does chip away at you. If you say it doesn't, then the job and everything you have experienced already has. What we do and see is not normal, and once it becomes normal, it's already affected you. I think that's pretty freaking powerful. C-Kaz, what's up, brother? And we got Patrick. Hey, I walked up on a 26-year-old kid still swinging, called the code, and the response took about 40 seconds with the door. He lived, but I can still see his eyes. See? And people don't realize that. That's why when I wrote this, I was thinking, like, you know what? I don't think people realize that we are affected by inmate suicide, again, because we see the human doing it and not so much the crime, where the public, some of the people public like, let him go, let him swing. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen that right in front of you? And then you also are responsible for that life, regardless of what they've done. So that adds to that. You are directly responsible for that individual. Okay, two last ones, guys. Guys, got to get your percentages on this, okay? And then we'll get to answering some of the questions. I'm going to have Russ go first this time, and then Connie will give me the higher lower. In corrections, do you think most staff would report a mistake that could threaten safety and security, or hide it because they're more concerned about getting in trouble? Now, what's the percentage out of 100%, guys? This is for you in the audience too. What's the percentage out of 100% that you think most would report it? Russ is stumped like hell. Right?
No, I know my answer.
No, but you got to go first, Russ, because then Connie gets the higher or lower.
I got to go first. I thought she was supposed to say higher or lower, and then I would give a percentage.
She doesn't know what the hell your percentage is. It kind of makes it hard to do it that way.
Exactly. That way, the only conceivable answer she could pick would be 50%. But I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with 74%.
Okay, wait. So you're saying 74% would report a mistake, even though it threatens safety and security. So you're saying 70? That's a high number. That's good.
That's a high number, but I believe it. I think I'm in the ballpark.
All right. So Connie, before you say higher or lower, I just want to tell you what the audience is providing us right now. We got 60% from Bonnie, 60% from Colette, 25% from Patrick. Very interesting, Patrick. Curious about that. 45%, 30% from Tiger Claw, 40% from 616, and Steve says 78%, kind of on par with Russ. Okay, now mind you, 337 people voted on this one. Connie, what do you got?
So I actually think this number is high, justifiably high, though. I think there's more people out there doing the right thing than not. So I would say a little bit higher, like close to or higher than what Russ is saying.
Okay, so that would report it.
That would report it, yes.
Okay, so Connie says it's higher than 50. Than what was your number, Russ?
74.
Okay. Oh, so Connie's saying it's higher than 74. Okay, guys. So you see, Tiger Claw said many COs don't want to be written up. For about only 57% would say they would report it. 43% would hide it. Now think about how that affects our facilities.
People, man, we can't afford, I'll tell you all the time, see mistakes. We can't let those go by because it's going to cost an even bigger problem in just a few minutes down the road. Man.
Yeah, remember that scenario we did a while back about missing keys and then, having to report it when you find out an inmate had it, and would the person report it if the inmate gave him back the keys? And it was a good dialogue we had. And you got to report it. Now, guys, we're going to do one more.
Oh, geez.
Have Connie go first with the number. All right, guys. Oh, Facebook said he saw a juvenile cutting his wrist with plastic spoon in a cell, wrapped his arm in a towel, blood was everywhere. I can still see his face. I could just imagine having to work in a juvenile facility that has to add to the emotion because that's a kid. Yes, most are in fear of losing their job. I guess this really does go with the trust you have for administration. I mean, do you have an environment that's constructive where mistakes we can learn from, failure is feedback, or do you have an environment where it's extremely punitive? And I will tell you right now, a majority of them, the ones that I would say are 57%, probably do work in an environment where, the 57% probably do work in an environment that they can trust, a constructive environment. The other 43 could be more of a punitive environment, and that what motivates the fact that they're hiding it. So again, I like to also push on management a little bit to have an environment that people can trust to report their mistakes, and they're not going to be punished for it. Okay, so last one, Connie. This is it. Hey, American DeBella, ciao. All right. Would you apologize to an inmate if you are wrong? Now, there's 449 votes on this one. This was a big one. So, Connie, what's the percentage that they would apologize if they were wrong?
Maybe 65%.
Ooh, what the hell? This was posted up on the
civilian. I'm going to go higher.
Me too. Yeah, Connie, 65%. Connie, guys.
Listen, there's some people who don't want to, who feel like, I guess in my mind, I'm thinking there's some folks who feel like they don't owe an inmate an apology, right? Like they don't owe them an explanation.
Well,
right?
Chuck agrees with you. Steve says, I would apologize to an inmate, and he would talk, and I'm going with 60%. All right, so wait a second. I'm off on this one.
I would apologize to an inmate.
I like what Connie's saying, but I think it's just a little bit higher.
Wait, higher that would apologize? So
that would apologize, because I like for me is, first of all, I would try and never put myself in a position where I was ever wrong. But if I were, I'm just being honest with you out there, you know. So, and I think that a lot of my brothers and sisters feel the same way. I think, you know, that being wrong, it might be a rarity. So there's no loss of face in facing up to something that you did, especially when most of the time you're right. But I don't know.
All right. So okay. So we got 70% from Colette. I love you, Russ, from 616 Love. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Ain't no shame in being wrong. And I'll bet you 616 Love, 100% Russ loves you back, babe. All right. Let's see. Wait. I have apologized to an inmate. I would say 45%. There's nothing wrong with saying sorry. I made a mistake. It helps you along. Okay. So guys, here it is. People that would apologize to an inmate, 88%.
Oh, look at that. That's even better.
Ah, yeah.
That makes me proud.
Yes.
Yeah. And then before we get to the questions, hey guys, you can start putting questions into the comments you guys have it. Then we'll do one more before we go, because there's one more that I want to do. Hold on. Where is it? Give me 1 second, because I had it. All right, here it goes. Last one, guys. Okay, good. Matt's got our first question. Okay, Matt. Do you think the use of no helps out or helps cut down on a need to apologize? Okay, good. That's actually right in line with. Okay, so Matt 72, by the way, congratulations. He's an official jailer now. So bravo, Matt. Well done. I saw your certificate, and he's come a long way. And by the way, just want to let people know, Matthew 72 has a published quote in my upcoming book.
Oh, fantastic!
So, yeah, so Matt is now a published author. All right, so last question, guys. You ready? Here it is. So Connie, you have to give me higher or lower, right?
Yep.
So Russ, you go first with a number, Russ. We don't have a higher or lower until you give us a number. All right. Has an inmate ever asked you to break the rules?
I am going to say, I'm going to say 80% said yes, because everyone gets tested, especially at that outset.
Okay, so you're saying, okay, we got 75% from 616 Love. And for this one, we had 319 votes. Connie, what do you got on that one? Higher or lower than 87%? Oh, shit.
I said 87%?
No, I fucking just read the answer. I just read the answer, guys. I just read it. But Connie, higher or lower? Did you see Russell?
He said 82%. He didn't
Go
say
ahead. Say higher and then apologize to me.
Yeah, exactly. I was actually going to say higher, and I only said that because I feel
that's exactly what I would have said.
Yeah, but inmates ask, like, who, like, I mean, I feel like they ask, like, they take the chance, right? Because they're so impulsive. Like, if there's an opportunity that presents, they are going to ask.
And they're going to keep
asking. They're going to keep asking until they get a yes, right? So I feel like there's probably more people that they've asked until they got that yes. Or
it was 87%. I mean, I was. You want to hear something funny? I remember someone coming up to me and saying, "Hey, Gangi, let me ask you a question." Now, this was in an email. This was going years ago. The person had asked a question. They said, "Gangi, how come, like, I've never broken the rules, whatever it is." They said, "But how come inmates keep on asking me to break the rules, but then you could have another officer in which they never asked them once?" So you could have an officer that may go throughout their whole career without ever being tested at that level. But this officer who's constantly saying no seems to get every inmate asking them, "Hey, can you bring this in for me? Can you do this for me? Can you do that for me?" Just out of curiosity, before we get to Matt's question first. How would you respond back to that, Russ?
Oh, okay. So there's a lot of things that can go into that. It can be as simple as, perception or the image or how you project yourself. With me, I think that the reason that they were so reticent to do anything like that at all was just the number of sheer busts that, I would conduct on these guys, the times that, that I had them hemmed up over stuff, whether it was, weapons or cell phones or anything like that. So I think that the line was really, really, drawn so that they could see it for themselves, and they knew that it was going to be futile. If they don't think it's futile, why not give it a go?
Right. And what's your thoughts on that, Connie?
I guess I would just say sometimes if they've seen you say yes, right? They've seen you sort of give in to others. They may continue to push or press you for what because they think maybe you're going to be worn down eventually. And I mean, I think sometimes, like, they just know who to try and who not to try, right? Like, there's some people who are very by the book and they know that they're not even going to be able to get the question off. And then there's some people who are probably going to give them some airtime when they probably shouldn't have that airtime. So, I think it really is, I think to Russ's point about the perception that they have of you as an individual. So if they feel that you're by the book and you're not having it, then most likely they're probably not going to approach you. But if it seems like you tend to give some airtime, then they're going to push the issue.
I added something to that too, because by the way, I agree with you guys 100%. I think it's how they perceive the officer or the staff member, but I also think it's how they react, how the staff member reacts to the request. So if an inmate asks you to do something, what did you do after you said no? Did you document it? Like, I mean, this officer where the inmate kept on trying, the officer never documented it. I'll guarantee you, if you want to put an end to it right away, you document it and they'll never ask you again. Somewhere along the line, you write the inmate up or do something. That one prevents the inmate from going to you again, but also puts it out there this inmate's trying to play a game. So, like, again,
yeah, zero documentation is a soft no.
Yeah. Oh, yep. That's true. It would say the same thing when inmates give a compliment. Ignoring it is not good, or you have to have a reaction to it. In some cases, the reason why the documentation is done is because you're putting the inmate on Front Street. This is a game the inmate likes to play, and they start to kind of get that reputation, and people are just evasive with that inmate. So I think it's actually always a good measure that if you're asked to do something illegal, somewhere along the line, it should be reported up and documented, and then start putting that label, that scarlet letter on the inmate. Plus, it also shows how connected you are. Because think about it, an inmate just asked you to do something. That inmate is taking a risk. So when they ask you, they're expecting you to probably do something. So having said that, even though you may say no and I'm not going to do that, there's still one more thing you haven't done, which show us, are you connected to your people? Are you going to go ahead and tell them what I asked you? But here's another thing too, guys. Remember something. If an inmate asks you to do something that you shouldn't do, don't automatically think it's you, because that's why a lot of people may not report it, because they may look inwards and say, well, maybe it's something about me, so let me figure it out. No, they're testing. It's random. Let me just see what I can get. And
never forget. And I was going to say also, never forget what you say, Anthony, is that it's not necessarily an event; it's a process. So just a no with no follow-up action now just could turn into a maybe, and then later a yes. So that's a process. It's going along a gradient of time like that. And so there's time for them to get that yes. Whereas when you follow up with an actual action, that's an event. That's an event that happens right there in that moment in time in which they're caught, and that's the end of it. So never forget, it is a process. It's not where you're never going to say no. It's that you're going to maybe say maybe, and then you're maybe going to say yes, and then you are going to say yes. And that might be a month.
It's always greater than the outcome. We always tell people that. And so Connie was nice enough to get the question, but also Matt reposted it, which is great. So we're going to go with Matt first, and I'm going to go right down the list, guys. We got questions from Chuck William, Facebook users. So we will be getting to them, guys. I promise. But I want to start with Matt's question first. And because Connie was nice enough to hold it to, near her heart, because it's Matt 72. We love Matt. We do. So I'm going to have Connie answer this one first, but I'm going to actually have Russ ask the question. Russ, can you read that question, please?
Man, if I had my glasses on, I
know. I did that on purpose. I did that.
Yeah, I know. But see, now you're stuck with it as I sound it out. Do you think the use of no helps with the need to apologize?
I don't answer it. Yes, Russ. Yeah, it's good.
Well, I'm waiting.
And you can go second.
I'm waiting for Connie.
Connie.
So, I mean, of course, I think no is very definitive. It's very concrete, right? Like there's not much else that you can do with the no. There's very little wiggle room with the no. But I think it's still, you have to be mindful of what information that you're giving, because you may still have to apologize if you've given some information. It may not be 100% correct, right? And a lot of times when those questions come up and you just don't have the answer, you're probably better off getting the answer, so that even if the next time they ask it, you have a response. And I mean, no is no at the end of the day, but I think that, no is concrete and there's no misunderstanding with that.
What's your thoughts on that, Russ?
Yeah, just dovetailing on that, it's the same thing. You give out that no, especially, because you could always come back and change that later. But once you've given that yes, it becomes extremely difficult, or it can even be worse, if you just go ahead and, abdicate, your authority, and you say, well, I would, except for Sergeant Gangi is on tonight. And then what happens from there? Then you end up in this big situation where, you do end up apologizing, even if it's only kind of, tacitly. You may not even realize that now you're apologizing for not being the one to actually make the call. And that proves to that inmate that you can be manipulated.
Yeah, and I also want to say, if you do make a mistake, let's say a no should have been a yes. First off, no one should, no supervisor should get on you for doing that. I mean, that's the safest way to be. You kind of, it's a universal precaution. You slow move. But the good thing is that the no in your mind is tentative, though. You know that it could change. But I'm going to give a no first, because again, we talked about the no is harder. The yes is harder to change. But with that said, even if there is a mistake, you should be empowered to fix it. So, like, if the supervisor catches that there is a concern and, hey, your no could have been a yes, the supervisor should not be the one going back correcting that with the inmate. They should go back and tell the officer, hey, listen, man, you could have done it. So why don't you go back and, however you want to deal with it, but I'm going to empower you to go ahead and fix that mistake. And so, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I'm sorry, I have to further review. But whatever it is, you have to realize something. This is important too, that the problem with us, with the people that may not want to apologize, even though it's a small percentage, is because they could view it as a win-loss. And don't get me wrong, you can have a lot of inmates that are going to take it as a win-loss. You make a mistake, and then you come back and say yes, and the inmate's like, victory, you were wrong. And it's like, oh, that's the last time I fucking apologize. So I get it, but you got to take that out of your mindset, regardless of, whatever the outcome is. It's not about a win-loss. It's about doing what's right. So don't let the win-loss take you out of context of what it is that you're trying to solve. Was the inmate supposed to get something that you denied them? Okay, fine. You know what? I made a mistake. Here it is. And it's not a victory, because technically, if you didn't do it anyway, it's a loss, because sometimes the inmate wants to be denied that, so they can start their process of a lawsuit or whatever it is that they want to go. So sometimes when you give them what they're supposed to have, it prevents them from getting that lawsuit, prevents them from trying to play whatever game it is. So again, don't look at it as a win-loss. Just let me solve the issue. Let me move on. And for the supervisor, make sure if the officer does make a mistake that you empower them to go back and fix it. And then also be off site when they do, and as I said, for the officer, if you don't have to go right away, don't go right away. Like, don't make it look like, I just spoke to the sergeant, and now while the sergeant's in the background, I'm going to go ahead and speak to the inmate. No, wait a while. There's no rush. Wait a while and make it look like that, I've been thinking it over, and, I'm going to go ahead and let you get it. So it doesn't look like you know, they went to daddy or mommy and mommy solved the issue, and now you got to go back and apologize again, because there is part of an image here, and that image comes from, I don't want my authority to be circumvented. So sometimes it's tough to apologize because we could think that when we apologize, we lose a bit of our authority. I disagree with that, but having said that, you still have to protect it. So just got to be very careful how you approach that. Would you guys agree with that or no? Connie or Russ, anything on that before we go to the next question?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So let's go to the no added thoughts on that one, right? For all three of you, if you could go back and change one thing about how you responded to an inmate, what would that be? Wow. So that's a regret. Do I have a regret? All right. So let's go with Russ is the furthest back, which means he doesn't have an answer yet. So let's go with him first. Let me think on this. Wait, can we come back to that one? Can I get the other one first? Because unless do you have an answer for that one yet, Russ, or no?
Well, I was, you know, I'm scratching to try and find a specific example in my mind that is kind of a story that illustrates a point. I think I can't think of anything specific. I know that there's been a few times in my career where, you know, I probably, you know, was too quick to make a judgment, or that I was, you know, too quick with a no, or that, you know, or that maybe, you know, my answer was maybe a little bit more inflammatory than it should have been. Maybe that I didn't escalate. I like to think that over the course of my career, for the most part, though, I was pretty even-handed, even though I was always the first one in. But it's hard to come up with a specific instance right on my mind now. But I know that there have been. So I'm not gonna say that, you know, I was flawless for my career.
The good thing about what you said, Russ, I don't want to overlook it, is that I'm not saying predictable, but if you're consistent with certain things, especially with your interactions with inmates, even if you get pulled into like a lawsuit later on and you don't remember who the exact inmate is, you remember your behaviors pretty much through those interactions as being consistent. And sometimes you can lean on those and roll the dice, because most likely that's how I was, unless it was something extremely unique. What about you, Connie? You have a specific?
I do. So if there was anything I could change, which I still can't change it, is that I smile a lot, right? I'm laughing, I'm smiling, I just do. And, you know, there were times where I probably should have been more serious, or be able to put up that serious face, to deal with certain situations or inmate requests. You know, I'm walking in a corridor and inmate asks me something. I'm like, what? Because usually sometimes I'm so thrown off by it. It's like, what are you asking? And then I'll laugh about it. Because in my mind, it's like, did he really think I was going to do it? But I feel like that also gives off a nervous energy. And sometimes it can give the perception of lack of confidence in my response. And so it's something that I've worked on, because that's just who I am as a person. And after a while of being in the system, I realized I had to be able to control that aspect of me. And I remember an officer telling me, he said, Connie, you killing them with this smile. And I remember thinking what are you talking about? I was never conscious about the smile, but other people would bring it to my attention, because I guess, you know, whether you intend to or not, a smile can, you know, communicate something. So I think that's it. And to Matt's war face, right? I don't necessarily have the war face that he's talking about.
Well, smiling is a submissive gesture, Connie. So, you know, you know what? For me, I shared the story before. I actually thought, Connie, you were going to share the story with the inmate that was pregnant.
Yeah.
I mean, do you mind sharing that real quick? I mean, maybe a quick. I don't know if you guys heard this story, but this may relate to the question that was asked by 616. And guys, keep the questions coming. But Connie, can you go over that story real quick?
Sure. So there was an inmate who she was pregnant and high risk pregnancy. She ends up having this baby. The baby has a rare blood disorder, and she's told that the baby's not going to live. And so immediately it's kind of like, how do we get this inmate the support that she needs so that, she's not going through this process on her own. We ended up sort of wrapping her around with with like the social worker, psychiatry, everybody, medication, all this stuff, right? And at a point, she has to go into the hospital to make the decision to take the child off of life support. And of course, that's like a big thing. So, as a mom, I could only imagine what she was feeling at the time. And so I was more willing to sort of make accommodations to make sure that not only was she supported, but, she was able to get through this tough decision. So long story short, we give her the support she needs. She gets through this tough decision, comes back to facility. She's in mental health for a couple days, and through the counseling process, folks are kind of talking to her about, here's everything that we had to do in order to get you the support you needed. And ultimately, she realized, like, I was the one who gave sort of the final approval for the social worker to go to the hospital with her and to kind of get all this other stuff. Great. So we fast forward, and, inmate sends me a letter to thank me. And, I kind of just I was like, oh, that's cool. Because I usually, as an HSA, you're getting like inmate complaints. You're not usually getting like thank yous, right? And so she then sends like another letter talking about like needing another roommate. And my secretary, who kind of would go through those letters to make sure like they were appropriate for me, she kind of said, why is she sending you another letter? And I didn't think anything about it in the moment either. But this one is her complaining about a roommate. But the caveat was, because she's been so sad and she's been crying, the roommate is just upset because the roommate can't get sleep. And I'm thinking like, holy crap, this is going to spiral quickly, like people are going to get past the fact that she just lost her baby. And like, it could be a situation. So I go to my clinic captain. I'm like, hey, can you help me out with this? I just got this letter. Is there something that you guys can do? And he was like, oh, let me look into it. Right. So he goes to the unit officer and kind of works things out, gets her moved, and everything's great. In comes like another thank you letter. And I don't even know why I got a thank you letter this time, because as a civilian, as an HSA, I don't have the authority to move somebody. But somehow she sort of backed it up to me. And then it was something else. Then it was like she wanted a job, right? She wanted an assignment change. And, here it is. I'm thinking like initially, do whatever you can to make sure that this chick is not going like decompensating in here. It doesn't have to be any worse than what she's already been through. That was the thought process at the time. And then I call my trusty captain again. I'm like, hey, listen, this is going on. But in the moment of asking him, I remember thinking to myself, why are you asking him this? Right? Like, would you ask him to do this for anybody else? Like, where is this going? Right? Because it was only in that moment that now I'm involving someone else that I'm thinking to myself, there's a process for this. And how are you allowing this person, regardless of what's going on in their lives? Because how many inmates have, very awful situations going on? All I kept thinking was, is she manipulating you? Right? Like, but how you think that it's not going to happen to you until it's happening. And, thankfully I was able to kind of reel myself in and kind of just tell the captain, I don't need you to do nothing. Like, and here, but in the moment he was willing. He's like, what do you need? Right? Because that was the relationship that we had. We worked with each other, and, it was like, okay, I need you to do this for me, Connie. Can you make this happen? Sure. You need someone, on a watch, or someone out of mental health, or someone moved out of one of the medical cells for some other administrative reason, right? So like we kind of always worked with each other, but in this moment, here's this person asking me for a housing, for a work assignment change. And like, all I'm thinking is, what's that got to do with the situation at hand, right? And, me over identifying with this woman who lost this baby and her now using it as leverage to get something that she wanted.
Yeah. And guys, but you see how, and we had a discussion on this not too long ago, when this is not really specifically related to directly to Connie, just in general. But if you go in with the mindset of 100%, I'm going to help out these inmates, that's what can happen. They could take advantage of that. That's why you always got to be balanced and kind of the rules. Like, so you'll have people that may go in at 100%, but the rules brings them back down to about 30.
Yep.
And that's because the inmate will take advantage of the other 70%. My quick thing, I've done a story on this before. It's just going to be and I want to move to the next question, but just going to be, I had an inmate that just kind of do the orders, but would complain and bitch and moan and just wind up, kind of going back and forth with her where I really didn't think I had to. Looking back now, and basically we wind up having a dialogue away from everyone. And it turns out it was all like just a dog and pony show. I mean, I'm telling her to do things, but she's being reinforced by her peers to do something else. And, you always got to be wary of the environment you're in, because you may, set up a level of good expectations for them, but they're in an environment that may push them away from that. And then if you're battling them out in that environment, the environment's going to win all the time because there's more pressure that the inmates will put than we ever could put. Trust and believe, as much as you think we control those actions of those inmates, we do to some extent, but it's really how we control the environment that helps us control those interactions with the inmates. If you have no control of the environment, then no control of yourself, there's no way you're controlling the inmate. Okay, so I thought this was a good question. Actually, there's two. So here's what I'm going to do, Chuck, because Chuck has a question, but Chuck referred a question to us from Patrick Roberts. So I'm going to go ahead and take Patrick Roberts' question first, because Chuck says it's a great question. So Patrick Roberts' question is this. Oh, by the way, Richard Spurgeon wants to thank everyone involved in this channel today. He signed his paperwork for promotion to sergeant at Westville Correctional Facility, Indiana. Thank you so much for your guidance. He has now been promoted to a sergeant. So that's
congratulations.
Great news. That's what we're up to here. Congratulations, man. It's great news. So the question comes from, where are you, Pat? Where's that question, man? Hold on. Let me find it. I guess we'll start needing moderators eventually, because I just saw the question. Pat, type it again. Type it again, because Patrick, I want to read his. Well, let me do Chuck Williams first, then we'll do Pat, because Pat, send the question again, Pat, because I don't know what's going on. Half my comments are getting cut. But question: how safe do line level staff feel about discussing possible inappropriate offender conversation with their supervisor? So you want to go with that one first, Russ?
Yeah, I think that means whether or not you feel that your supervisor is going to back you with regards to some inappropriate question that you've been asked by an inmate. Is that what he's?
Yeah, I think so. Remember how I mentioned it before too, and I do think this is true. I think his question does make sense, or her question. Okay. Patrick's got his question up. Okay, so I think Chuck's question makes sense. So I think that there's a lot of people that when they have an interaction with an inmate, and let's say the inmate asks them to break a rule. Now, don't get me wrong. Doesn't mean the officer's corrupt. The officer will nip the inmate in the tracks and say, yo, I don't do that stuff, blah, blah, blah. But they don't do any type of action to follow up on that, like documentation or telling their supervisor. And I think the reason why they don't always go to tell their supervisors, for some reason, they think it's something about them that's bringing it on. So here's the funny thing. Even though they haven't committed to that action that inmate wants them to do, they feel as if they did because the inmate asked them that. So, do you think when it comes to them going to their supervisor, are they affected by, really is how they feel about what's being asked about them? And do they think that maybe they don't go to the supervisor because they feel that because the inmate asked me this question, maybe they think in their minds that they are corruptible or something about them inwards?
Yeah, I think it has to be, about whatever that supervisor's style is, right? The kind of feedback that, I want to give people is, what they did, how correct was it? Was there anything additional that they could have done? And then I want to do what I can to train them, but not detract from what they did, but to add to what they did and give them some different avenues, some different ideas, and some proper instruction on what they should do to actually solve that problem, not merely let it lie. I have seen and been the recipient of some things that some supervisors have done where, they can belittle you and they make you second guess yourself. And instead of having, an open, honest dialogue where you can bounce things off of each other and try and come up with better solutions or a single great solution to something, that people just kind of feel like, this guy, he's got it in for me, or, bringing this up is just going to make things worse, actually. So that's the way we should never be. We should always be receptive toward what our people are telling us, and to try and, put them in the right position and teach them how to handle these things. And, if you don't have the right answer, you should be able to, ask your other people that you're supervising about what they think. And then, also your peers, and then also those above you, if you aren't sure what a great solution would be.
Yeah, I know, Connie, you have a thought on that too, because I know you're getting ready. Because I like Trish. It's kind of exactly what I said. The documentation, put case note, alert on the inmate stating, inmate known to have inappropriate requests. All staff can then see the info. I love that, because
like
that's
that.
what kind of, I love the wording too. Inappropriate requests, because that can mean anything. Not every request is illegal, but it's inappropriate. Connie, I know you had a little thought with that. What was your thoughts on that?
So I think, sometimes you have some hesitation to come forward because there's so you have those managers who may sometimes just think the worst, right? Like who may think that you've already done something in the past, right? Or they're asking you because like you're already guilty of something. So like I think there's just this general hesitation to come forward and sort of state what was asked or requested because of that. But I also have to agree that when we start to document that this particular person or inmate is asking for X, Y, and Z, and we share that with other people, like it kind of puts us all on notice that this inmate is going to be asking questions or making inappropriate requests. And I don't know, I know for us in medical, we actually had like a sort of long-standing communication where if there was, a particular inmate who was giving us issues for whatever reason, like the nurses would come back and say, inmate in 4 North, John Doe continues to ask for XYZ. And then we'll see that in the next nurse who went down to go do meds or what have you. So I think the transparency and the communication, aside from, a supervisor who may not necessarily embrace or support that person coming forward, who may, treat them whatever kind of way, I think at least when it is documented and we do share that with each other, that level of transparency kind of protects us all.
Yeah, and again, not to reiterate, but that's what it is. You have to tell the supervisor, because that to me is the final act. My concern would be not so much how the supervisor views you, but how the inmates view you. Because if you don't do that, they're going to do it again and again. So even when I had that question a while ago, I did ask that person, just coming to my mind, the first thing is, if they came to you 4 times, as much as you're looking inwards, my first action is, what are you doing to stop the behavior? To stop it at some, evergreen, what are you doing to make sure it doesn't happen again? Yeah, we may all think maybe there's something that makes the inmates want to come to us, but I'll tell you something, guys, all you have to do is report it once, and word will spread that you're not that person. So, okay, so we got a lot of questions. Okay, so Blackjack, I got you. Just give me a second. I also got Tiger asks a question about males working in female facilities. I got that. We're going to answer that. But I want to get, I do have that question from Patrick Roberts. And I think this is a good one. Do you ever catch yourself talking like a con? Because I guess you're around them. how much of an influence. So I want to mention something before we go into that answer. I'll go with Connie first, and Russ, and then myself. I want to remember, guys. So you're right. By proximity, obviously, you could catch on to people's behaviors, and there could be an influence. I mean, trust me. If I was in New Jersey and I lived down south for a while, I'm sure I'll pick up some twang. And somebody wanted to hang up with me for a while, hang out with me, I'm sure they'll pick up some New Jersey stuff. I mean, we always have a habit of being influenced or picking up certain habits, whether passively or in some cases intentional. So with that said, I'm going to ask the question again within that context, and I'll go to Connie first. You all catch yourself talking like a con. So I can generalize this question out to you, Connie, but I'll be a little bit more general with this. Not just talking like a con, but maybe like inside, out of work, whatever it is, picking up certain habits that the cons have because you're surrounded by them for so long. So, I mean, I think it's a good question because it deals with influence.
Yeah.
Remember that one time you told me you were going to slit my throat and something because remember I said good morning. No, I said good morning. How's the family? And went totally violent. Could that be something?
Oh, give me a break. So I don't know that I've had I think because I've never had like extended exposure in that sense, right? Like I think like when you're working in a unit and you're surrounded by the inmates, they're just regular conversations that, you find yourself speaking that way. But like with medical, our exchanges are usually just that. Like it's very transactional and like we're not with them in that way to have that level of influence. Our interactions are, kind of they're in and out, right? So I don't think so. I think what I have as far as mannerisms, I think there may be some, like I've found myself doing little things, but I also feel like that's just part of being in facility, right? Like it's part of you work in a facility. There's a level of awareness that you have in general. And so you take that awareness with you no matter where you go. And I wouldn't say that that's necessarily inmate driven. But what I do think could be inmate driven is just some of the slang, right? Like, I've caught myself, I mean, probably more closer when I was still working in facility, just kind of using some of the words. But so to an extent, I guess it's plausible. But from a medical perspective, like I don't think we have that extended period of time. But if I can imagine if you're working a housing unit for days in, days out, multiple shifts, you're on overtime and you're surrounded by inmates and their conversations, that it would have you would pick some things up.
Guys, I want to add something too, because this is a good question. Like what Connie said, I think Pat also complimented time plus exposure equals influence, right? But sometimes it's passive influence and then sometimes it's intentional. So I would say this. I know for me, when I worked in a unit, I was very intentional with my actions. And I'm the one that wanted to give out the influence. So I'm the one that kind of want to set the expectations. Now, don't get me wrong. We are interacting with inmates a lot more than we've ever did before. So in the process, maybe there could have been certain things I could have picked up passively, but I would know for a fact intentionally, I was the one always in charge and always had an end game. So having said that, when dealing with the inmate population, because of my position of authority, I put myself where I felt that they did have an influence on me, it would be harder for them to get to because I had to play the higher role. And again, you got to be very careful too, because, you could be working around them, but with that said, you are the one that's in control and you got to watch out where that influence can lead, because I think part of what Patrick's question also could go into is the fact that maybe they could start influencing, kind of what Connie touched into, bad habits could lead to bad behaviors, and then eventually wherever that's going to go, that's a good rabbit hole that we may not want to explore. So with that said, I think that, and this could definitely be a topic on itself, is I think that having those interactions with the inmates, if you want to limit that influence, it's totally intentional, but you have to make sure that you're in charge of every one of those interactions. Never go into an interaction without having an end game. That's always the key. Always have an end game. But I do think that there are passive things which you should be able to catch yourself. but you're going to have to be intentional to make sure that you limit that amount of it could be negative influence too, guys. So you have to limit that by taking control of the room, and then making sure you're the one doing. Because don't forget, guys, and one more thing before we get to Russ. If I'm the one in control and I'm passing out positive influence, then hopefully they start to pick up on those habits, and I get that back. So maybe it's whoever has. Maybe it literally is a shift in the dynamics of the influence. Like if I have a bunch of inmates and they have more power than me, then maybe the influence starts to go towards their way. But what about if I just battle that power? And next thing you know, the influence starts coming my way to the point where it's a tit for tat. Eventually maybe it's my influence. So I will take that. Maybe that's a good way. Hold on, guys. Just came up with something here. Maybe that's a good way to tell if an officer's been corrupted. Like first day on the job, they're professional, uniform's tight, and then they're running a housing unit for a week. You come back, the fucking shirts out of their pants. They're talking all like, "Yo, what up, homie? What's up? What's up?" It's like, whoa, wait a second, brother. Your influence is not working here. Yeah, I'm just saying. But Russ, sorry guys, but I think there's a point to that. Russ, what's your thoughts?
Okay, here, let me help you with your point, Anthony. I think the way to really look at it is to a degree we can all be influenced by things. Sometimes with some of the lingo, the slang, or whatever, it gets to be easier than having to explain to them what you mean. I think the only real problem with all of that is we need to be able to draw distinct lines between what our prescribed role is and what their role is within the department, within the facility, or so forth. The real issue, though, could be that a person that is so heavily influenced that they do nothing but talk that way, that they do nothing but, have those same affectations and mannerisms, might be a really, really good tell for the inmates to pick up on, so that they then will spend more time trying to groom or manipulate that individual, because they already see that they've had an influence on them, and they want to be able to cultivate and reap the rewards of influencing that person even more.
Yeah, and again, that kind of goes into the process of it all, because that was a great question, because I think it's a lot deeper than what we realized on the surface, because influence could lead someone down a very nasty role. So I actually want to say now that you better make sure you're intentional with not giving up your influence, because technically your influence should be changing the unit, not the other way around. Good question I have from I have Blackjack, but I also have Tiger Claw. So let's do Blackjack first, and then we'll go to we'll have Russ answer this one first, then Connie, then myself. Blackjack says, male correctional officers working in female prisons, what's the percentage of males getting fired by being romantically involved with a prisoner? I refuse to work at a prison for women. I do have experience in a women's facility, but I do want to go last. I don't want to bias, but I think it's low. But what's your thoughts, Russ?
I don't know about the percentage. What I will say, though, is the percentage of that being used in order to try and gain something is probably 100%. Right, because it's such a hot topic button that all a female inmate has to do is make an allegation, threaten to make an allegation, insinuate that they're going to make an allegation, or do something else in order to take you out of your game, to put you in a position where you can't act, or just to in general blackmail you. So, I don't know what that percentage would necessarily be as to, who gets involved in that. I think that by and large, most correctional staff, though, are better and more professional than that. And we have, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people every day that don't get involved in any of that stuff. None of those people are going to make the news. It's the very few ones that do get involved that blow it out of proportion to a point where that's all you see, and you think that that's all that's going on. And especially with the way the media and the journalists will run with it and then put their whole spin on it and throw a bunch of words in there that blow it up even more, bigger than it was, even though there was some truth to one particular story. And the next thing you know, there is a perception that doesn't match reality.
Yeah, and before Connie, I just want to mention one thing with that. Let me just see. Where's Blackjack? Actually, Connie, yeah, why don't you answer first? I'm looking for a question real quick too. But Connie, do you want to attack that a little bit too?
Yeah. So as someone, so the last 5 years of my career was spent managing a female facility. And so the women don't hesitate to make allegations that, if there is something that they're angling for, they don't hesitate to make allegations about officers. And quite honestly, I've found that the officers were super professional and probably almost rigid to avoid those types of allegations being made against them. It was almost like just them proactively protecting themselves, right? But I think at the end of the day, the ability to treat every inmate the same, I think, was what was most important. That it was hard for any of the females to create this perception of like favoritism, or the perception that they had some sort of relationship with an officer that they really didn't have. And in being there, I did have the experience of being part of an investigation into an inmate who said she was pregnant by a male officer there. But in 5 years, that was the one time I had that experience. And that's not to say that, the threat isn't real, and that the ability for the women to manipulate isn't real, because it's very real. But I do feel like the professionalism that officers brought to the table was one that made it a little more challenging for the women to push the envelope.
That's me. So I was watching, I was making sure we're on LinkedIn. I'm getting comments on LinkedIn, but it's not showing up on here. Okay, so just for me, oh wait, Connie, I want to know, was that true with the person getting pregnant?
It was true.
All right, 616, you got your answer. True crime story. Yeah. So for me, I'll be honest with you guys. I worked at a female facility for almost 9 years. I enjoyed it. I was an officer there, direct interaction with the inmate population. I mean, before you're walking in, you get these horror stories that people are telling you, man, if you go there, all the inmates are going to do is show you this and that. And guys, that's only if you allow it. Trust and believe. For all the officers that have these crazy stories about what the female inmates are doing while they're there, when they're done speaking, say, well, is that because you allow it? Because I'm telling you something, once you set a standard, the games stop. For the most part, the games will stop. But, again, I think the percentage is low. I just think it's put out there more because, people don't want men working in women facilities. I mean, that's been a war going on for many years now. I found that the men I worked with, of course, you're going to have some that really shouldn't be there. But for the most part, I would go as high as, say, 95, 96% were professional and needed. There was a balance between the men and the female officers there. So, again, they're inmates. Treat them no different than you would any other inmate, and then move forward with your day and come back to next work, do the same thing, be professional. But I don't think it's something that you need to run away from. The one thing that you'll learn the most at a female facility is you will learn how to communicate. I mean, that's a big thing there, and I remember that. But as I said, it's if you're looking to grow in this profession, and you've been working with men, and maybe there's an opportunity to work with the females. I know a lot of people may want to jump away from that because it could be tough, and I get it, because there were moments where it's like, man. But I started at the female facility, so, that's all I knew. But again, if you're looking to grow and try something new, it's a great resume builder. I've been in 4 different facilities. I've worked with males, females. I mean, a good portion of my time. Juveniles, too, because we've had young people in our facility as young as 14 when I was at the female facility. So I've got some pretty good round experience. But if you're looking just to get through the day and not to grow, I'm looking to get through the day and maybe do something a little bit more convenient, I would say that may not be a journey that you want. But if you're looking for a challenge, then yeah, I say give it a shot. But again, that's your call. You got to know what it is that you're looking for, or more importantly, what it is you're trying to run away from. Well, because you're running away from something doesn't mean that the other spot's going to be a better option. We'll see again. That's why you're softy on here. We're females taught you well. Yeah, I learned a lot working in a female to say, hey, I wrote a whole book on inmate manipulation. So I must have learned something. Hey, Blackjack had a question, Russ, that's very specific. The problem is, hey, Blackjack, do me a favor. Can you send the question again? Because the comments are getting lost. I don't know what's going on, but it's a specific question about background checks. So I want to make sure they can submit it again. In the meantime, we'll answer.
So I could read it because I see the question here.
Oh, you have it? Can you
read
that, please?
Yeah. It says, hey, Anthony. Hi, Russ. Question for Russ. Been in application process since February 8th, 2021. I'm yet to be scheduled to go into background verification. I did the fingerprinting and physical tests. Is this normal?
See, here's the problem is there's nothing normal in the world anymore because of COVID, right? So I think that the whole idea that is it normal? Does it usually take that long? Mine in California took 18 months. The fingerprints that you did is actually part of the background investigation because they're looking to see if you have, any prior times that you were locked up or in jail. They also want to see where else you may have applied to a degree. So they can see that because all of those fingerprints are cross-referenced. I would say probably right now that's probably is about what's normal. What you want to find out is if you have actually been assigned a background investigator. That part of it is all about, who's in your immediate family, what you've disclosed, how many things that they have to run down. If you've had a lot of people in your family who were in prison, they have to, run down those leads and decide, whether or not you've had that kind of, influence in your life and whether there's anything hidden that you haven't disclosed, and they're making sure that you're honest at that point. I would say that you're probably going to have to ask around a little more to find somebody who knows the exact process that's going on right now. Because like I said, with COVID, nothing is normal anymore.
Yeah, and I just want to mention something. So, okay, so he has been assigned a background investigator too. Hey, Blackjack.
Email that individual and ask.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. And also remember, California is a big state. So actually, I still think, I know February 8th seems a long time ago, but for California, I'm sure your numbers for applicants, and plus your pay is good. I'm sure it's a lot of people going out for those jobs, right?
And it's centralized hiring. So that means that everyone goes through the same hub. And so they may or may not have enough background investigators at this point in time to handle whatever that flow is. The main thing you want to make sure is that somehow your file doesn't, get set aside. So, don't be an overly squeaky wheel, but squeak a little bit.
Yeah, I would ride out the rest of this month. Let it go to April 8th. Now you got 2 months in. It's about 60 days. And I think that would be okay to send something back. But again, I think it's a big state, so I wouldn't stress too much, especially if you're even signed a background investigator. Most people don't even get to that point. Okay, so this is going to be a good question. So Richard Spurgeon, as we said, just became a supervisor, just became a sergeant, signed his promotional paperwork. So he goes, do you have any tips on being an effective supervisor? I would really like to be the best that I can be, and this platform hasn't steered me wrong yet. So I thought we can go with Russ first and then Connie. So Russ, what do you got, from your perspective, being a supervisor?
Well, the big thing is getting those people that you're supervising to buy in to your vision of what you want your little part of the world there to look like. Your unit, your section. Whether you're head of the kitchen or if you're running a yard, whatever it is. And then you want to take those people and you want to empower them, right? You want to give them the power to make, final judgments and so forth. but you got to provide the training so that they have the background and a way to, actually flourish and grow in that. And so you want to find the people that have, certain talents. There's going to be a guy or a gal on your yard who's maybe going to, know the gangs better than anybody else. There's going to be someone else that's really good at searches. There's going to be someone else who, is really good at report writing. And you're going to have these people train and cross-train others to develop the skills that they don't yet have, or that they need to polish. That's going to make you, in their eyes, an awesome source of knowledge, even though, you might have limited experience or whatever. And then the best thing that you can do beyond that point is to march into battle, so to speak, with these people. Start conducting operations, where it's things like, okay, we're going to do a mass search today. So we're going to lock down for 2 hours and we're going to hit A dorm or B block or whatever it is, and assign people specific tasks to do and carry out, and, just teach them how to be effective officers, impact players, and help put that drive in them. Now, some of them are going to be natural leaders already, and they're going to go and do that. Some are going to need a kick in the butt because they don't want any part of this new active thing that you're pushing. But either way, it's going to develop you, because you're going to have to deal with all of those different issues at the same time. And so you can look at it as a big pain in the ass, or you can look at it as growing pains. So that's my suggestion.
All right. And Connie, what do you got?
I don't know that I have anything on that one. I feel like
I can go first.
Yeah, you could go.
I'll go first. Let me see, because I do have a couple of things. Okay, so real quick, I want to feed off on what everybody's saying here, and then maybe Connie will be able to piggyback if she can. I was thinking so quick that Connie would be like, "Whoa, as a supervisor, you got to reinforce that connection with civilians." But Connie's changed; she's pure custody now. So hey, no. So here's a couple of things that I would say. So when I jumped into being a supervisor, and I showed this picture off the other day. Here it is again. That's me when I worked at the maximum security prison in New Jersey. That's going back about 2011, maybe, if I remember. That's probably 2011. Happy, not disgruntled, looking good, looking sharp, And then 3 years later, I'm wearing a suit and tie. But with that said, this is the first time you're going to have responsibility over others. So you have to understand what that responsibility means. And again, I don't think you're about external incentive anyway. So this is probably just going to be reiterating what you already made the choice to do anyway. But having that responsibility does matter. I mean, you're in a position to grow, which means that you're going to go in humble, and you're going to listen to the people that are beneath you, and you're going to allow yourself, as much as you can influence them, or allow them to influence you. A lot of books will tell you that once you get to position, that kind of gives you the right to lead or the opportunity to lead. But eventually, people will have to give you that permission. So ultimately, you're going to be a leader that serves your front line. I mean, that's the key. You're going to be a voice for them, especially as a sergeant, because you're the closest to them. So you have to express their concerns, and you have to be willing to do that. And I think that the front line has to respect the effort, not the outcome. It's always about the effort. So are you willing to give 100% effort to your front line? Are you willing to speak up, their concerns when they have them? And I think that to me is key. Also, I don't know if you're working in a facility where you're supervising people that were your peers, but if so, you got to set the standard right away. Even if some of them are friends and you hang out afterwards, just be very careful, because as a supervisor, you have to remember that sometimes you have to play the role of supervisor. And, you have to always ask yourself, when you're at the job, that's your role. You're a supervisor. And if any one of if someone that's a peer makes a mistake, you have to ask yourself, how am I dealing with this? Am I dealing with this as a supervisor or as their friend? Because at the end of the day, if you do have a good friendship with this person and you're letting them slide because you're their friend, well, you're killing your team. So you always have to do what's best for the team. That to me is extremely important. And again, you're you want to make sure that whatever you do, that you promote fairness, but you have to always make sure you never get your roles conflict. You never get your roles conflicted. You are about, getting the job done, what the agency expects from you. So I would say you're also in a higher level of trust, because now when you become a supervisor, especially that first line supervisor, you should be empowered to make decisions, because let's be honest, not everything is guided by policy. But I would tell you to make sure you read those policies, because when you have to justify a decision, you're going to need those policies to kind of say, okay, this is why I did this, or this is what the policy didn't cover, so I had to do this or that. And then also one last thing, remember, you are not a direct contact for the inmates anymore. It's the officers. So you got to let them do your job. I mean, the inmates can see you, but you shouldn't be so accessible to them. You're approachable, but not accessible. And I think that you now have to let the officers do their job. And whatever you do, there's what we call a perception of authority. Do whatever you can to make sure that the officers that you supervise always have that perception of authority. And I'll tell you one way I do it, even at an admin level. I may be in charge of this huge house, but when I go into a dorm or when I go into a unit, I give that officer their respect, because it's their house at that point. So even if that means a humble down and let the inmates know when you walk into a unit that the officer still runs that house. If an inmate comes to you now, it's hard. You go to them, do whatever you can to empower your front line. And I think that's what's going to be truly beneficial for you, and that's what's going to get you the respect you need. Now, Connie, I gave you a lot of stuff here. Now I see some motivation here. What do we got, Connie?
No, so the thing, I was a little hesitant because I feel like there's so much that goes into when you become a supervisor, right? So I think taking into account the culture that you're walking into. And so before jumping in and deciding this is what I'm going to do, or, trying to adapt a certain supervisory style, I think it's important for you to kind of get a lay of the land and understand how do we do things in this facility, right? And it's not because you have to do exactly what everyone else does, but I feel like there is a learning period when you step into any supervisory role. If you're going into a new facility, if you're going into a new state, here in Connecticut, like multiple facilities, I've been to all of them, worked through all of them as an HSA, but my reality is that the way the Hartford jail operated versus the way the McDougal prison operated was completely different, right? So I think understanding the actual operation, I think really getting very familiar with the rules and how they are in practice, right? Because a lot of times, especially when you're new to supervision, you get into the rules, but you don't necessarily see the practice around you. So being able to provide guidance to your team based on what the rules actually are, but understanding the history behind whatever might be the best practice, I think is really important. And then I think, there's a level of engagement you have to have with your front line, right? There's a level of engagement that you have to have with folks outside of your department so that you're very aware of the skill set that your front line brings to the table, but also you understand that if there's something missing in I guess whatever would fall within your scope, you know where else to go get the information. You know how to guide your staff if they need support or they need guidance on what direction they should be going. So for me, it's not just what supervisory style you're going to take on and how you're going to conduct yourself, but it's also being very familiar or becoming very familiar with the actual operation and the resources you have access to, as well as being able to be that resource to your staff.
I think I think we covered a lot there for you, Rich. I think there's obviously a lot of stuff that, you'll have to pick up along the way, but I think the key is just, if I could just say one again, just go in there wanting to learn, because again, to be honest with you, we all go for the supervisory position, but we're never really ready. I mean, shoot, even when I move up, I'm never really ready. You know, it's just I'm looking to grow. So what I would do is I would look at where you're going and say, is this my next opportunity to grow? Yes. So it's not about the position. Is this my next opportunity to grow? Yes. So let me see what it can offer. You know, so you're doing two things. What can you give the position, of course, because you have to serve to your people, but also what can you take? So try to find a way to balance that and take everything as a learning experience, because if you have a growth mindset, then every challenge becomes an opportunity to learn. And I think that truly does matter, because as a supervisor, obviously you're going to be facing a lot of challenges and decisions that you're going to have to make 100% that you're going to be responsible for and accountable for. So just, be ready for that. I mean, that's the key. And just trust yourself. I mean, if you don't trust yourself, then the people below you won't trust you, and they'll see it. Trust me. If you're hesitant in anything, they'll know. And the last thing you want is for them to lose faith in your confidence to do the job. Okay. So I noticed, I mean, we've got a few more and then we'll start closing it down. Julie mentioned something. Hello. Thank you for the advice on your last slide. We helped her out with the psych stuff, Russ. I don't know if you remember that. I'm scheduled to complete the medical evaluation. Any advice or tip for the medical evaluation? I mean, all I know is for the medical evaluation, I mean, they'll do the blood pressure, stuff like that. Just remain calm, because sometimes it doesn't read right the first time. So don't get nervous. You know, they'll sit you in a room and they'll give you a few minutes because they know it's a nerve-wracking experience. They'll probably test you again. But really, for the medical evaluation, I mean, you just got to, I mean, if you want to do another physical before you go, but.
Is it a medical evaluation or is it a physical evaluation?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or is it both? Because there's a distinction. A lot of times, you have to perform a physical event, that can be, dragging a dummy or doing a sprint or pedaling a bicycle and being hooked up to a EKG. Sometimes if it's more of just a medical part, they're looking to see if you're just generally healthy, and it'll be just like a blood draw and a history and things like that. So there's not a lot.
She's saying it's a medical, so I agree with you. There's really not much you can do. It's just like you said. What is it, Russ? They're going to draw up.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing. Yeah, you're either healthy enough to carry off this job, or you're not. And so, there could be some reasons why you wouldn't be able to be hired. You have to have certain vision. You have to, be healthy enough that you're not going to, drop dead of a heart attack. You have to be healthy enough that you can, lift an inmate up and drag them out of a room, although that's also part of the physical test. But they're going to look at some of those things. Probably my guess would be is that once they do the medical part and they sign that off, because now they've got a doctor saying that you can probably do these physical tasks, that's when they'll actually, at some point right after that, conduct that physical test.
Yeah, and I guess the only thing I can say, I like what Alicia said with the mindful breathing, keep your blood pressure down. Sometimes a lot of us do test high blood pressure because we're anxious, or I wouldn't even say stressed. We're just more anxious because we don't know what's going to happen. You got to kind of make sure you calm down your nerves, because if not, that's going to show up. And the number one thing I know they do check with, that they don't mess around with, is your blood pressure. They'll check it maybe once or twice, and after that, if it's still high or whatever it is, they will just say, hey, I'm sorry, this ain't going to work, and they'll let you go, because there's a lot of liability with that. And I've seen it happen even when I was in the Correction Academy in 2002. But they do more than one check, which is a good thing, because there are some people that hide because they're nervous. Then they go in the room and they calm down, and next thing you know, they're perfectly fine. They come back to sit right next to you, and they start to move forward. But just again, keep yourself calm. And I think for this one, just passively go through it, see what they tell you to do, and just do what they tell you to do, because there's really not much. You're healthy or you're healthy or you're not. I mean, I don't know how you prepare for that one. Okay, and then we got Flow Grow. Welcome. It looks like they got their physical coming. Congratulations. Hey, this was a good question. Hey, Russ, real quick.
Yeah.
Do you know that answer with R. Miller with Hi, Russ? I know this is a bit off topic, but do you know if CDCR is still dealing with federal oversight regarding Armstrong versus CDCR ADA lawsuit?
Okay, so what I'm about to say will probably be a little bit controversial, but okay. So, back years ago into the 2000s.
Wait, Russ, before you say it, hold on. Before you say it, let me just remove me and Connie from the screen. Okay, guys, Tier Talk is done. Thank you guys for watching the show. Welcome to Russ Hamilton Hour.
Okay. No, I'm going to make this because, being out of it, not being exposed to it every day, probably a little rusty on some of the facts. But in my opinion, they had Armstrong, they had Plata, and another one that I can't think of off the top of my head at the moment. But these were all things that had to do with the healthcare system within CDCR. And so what happened is CDCR lost these lawsuits. And I'm going to say that, in my opinion, they lost them on purpose. And then what ended up happening is they ended up getting a special monitor for all these things, and they consolidated a lot of them. And they had this judge who was running things and getting paid, $500,000-$600,000 a year. And there was a big gravy train, and all of it was kind of a big hope on the part of some of the people running this crazy state in order to just completely dismantle California Department of Corrections, which is essentially, what happened. I mean, look at where we're at now. I think we're down to 130,000 inmates. And at one point we were up in the low 180s, high 170s. So anyway, all of these things went on, and they just made it look like a complete, bumbling thing with regards to the medical care we were providing, which I never thought it was that bad, but, they managed to spool it up. So as far as I know, some of that's still going on. They've wanted to get out from underneath that special monitor for years and years and years. I've kind of lost touch with what's really going on in regards to that, because it's just a way for them to feed at the trough forever and ever. And that gravy train of money just keeps running through it. And those people that are running that office, the guy, I can't think of his name, Judge Felton something or other, but anyway, he just keeps eating at the public trough. And he's appointed, he works for the feds, and he's never going to go away. He's going to do everything he can to keep finding fault with what's going on. So some other states have similar problems. I know that they've been looking at getting rid of some special monitors in New York, for instance, because that's all they do. They belly up to the trough, and then nothing ever happens, and they never go away.
All right, and guys, oh, by the way, we're back. Me and Connie left for a second, and so we don't know what you talked about. Now, Alicia, can't wait to see us again on Duty Ron. He'll be calling us soon, and we're definitely always available for him.
I want to go on Duty Ron.
Well, you know what? All three of us are going to go. I think Duty Ron should give us his venue for a day and let us host the show. If you guys agree, please hit Duty Ron up and say that me, Connie, and Russ are willing to guest host on his channel. And I think
crash his subscriber list.
Yeah. Oh, he'll lose subscribers with us. So 2 more questions. And by the way, guys, for Blackjack, the body cams are not a bad thing. Trust me and believe it. It stops a lot of false allegations. So I'm actually okay with it. Hey, Russ, real quick, just to speak.
Is that the question? Is there a question about body cams?
No, I want to. No, we can cover that in another episode. I just want to.
Okay.
But I want wait before we do the last 2. Let me just. He wants a piece of advice from you. He had a question. When I do start working and I'm assigned somewhere far away, should I rent a house nearby or try to find someone to be roommates with, or can that lead to trouble at work? I would rather live on my own. But what would you think, Russ?
I would see if I could find a studio apartment. I think that should be kind of a transitory situation. You're going to want at some point to get your family down there with you and to be in the same living situation that you're in right now, because you're going to need people to support you and to live your life. You're not going to be, in that bachelor pad or whatever. And I don't know if you're married or whatever, but that's not going to last forever. At some point, you got to start building that up. What I would do at the beginning, though, is I would start by finding, a studio in an area that's not high crime. All right. And that's important, because, you're going to perhaps have some, potential security issues if you're not in a really good place.
Yeah, and I would say, guys, I worked, state centralized hiring. I mean, I mean, hopefully they do like to put you somewhere a little bit close. I mean, right now I do an hour 40 to work, an hour 40 back. But if you are single or whatever it is, and you could afford it, I wouldn't recommend doing a roommate because then you're responsible for them too. Trust and believe it. They're doing something foolish and they decide to check your house. It doesn't matter whose weed it was or whatever the hell it is. It's both you guys are in trouble. Oh, he said another coworker. Yeah, I would just rather be responsible for my own actions, especially if this is a career. And I get it. It's not an easy thing. You have to save money, so you have to if you're going to have a roommate, I mean, you really got to lay down the rules. I mean, 100%.
Just be cautious.
Yeah, be very cautious.
Be cautious. Be smart.
Yeah, it's not an easy choice, but I guess sometimes you're going to have to. So. Oh, by the way, Julie, not all CO jobs are 12-hour shift, 3 days a week. Some facilities have 8-hour days, 5 days a week. Some you're allowed to resip to cut your week down in half. So it really depends on what the agency wants. But here's one question real quick, and then we'll start coming down to a close. Well, these are the last two I had. Executive asked, should surveys be given to prisoners to rate who they think is being the best correction officer, and those ratings can be used to choose supervisors?
No.
Do we have to explain that one, or we're good with that?
Okay, so that's a way to manipulate the process to get what you want. It's the same thing that we see with this horrible law that was passed with PREA, and how they use that to try and get officers that are being effective, that are making busts, that are actually, increasing the safety and security and putting a kibosh on the STGs, right? They manipulate through that. And the process that just talked about is that exact same thing, but just without a law behind it.
Yeah, and I think that was easy enough. Yeah, that sounds like a big problem. It is, because again, he added a little caveat that was a twist. Not only are we voting for the best officer, but they become a supervisor. It's like, okay, wait a second, hold on, slow it down. That would be a crazy survey. Interesting to know who they would pick, though. Makes us want to go back.
You know that saying about the inmates running the asylum?
That's it. Yeah,
that's it.
So we'll make this the last question. I do like this question. It's going to come from. Where is it, guys? I don't know what's going on with my Chuck Williams. I like this. So he's directing it to Russ, but we're all going to take the baton on this because I really do think this matters in all fields. So you see where it says Russ at the very beginning, it's the first word. We're going to just fucking ignore that. We're going to ignore that. That's irrelevant at this point. And sorry, I'm just joking. Okay, Russ. So we'll have you go first, Russ, because it was directed to you. But me and Connie would like your permission once you're done to add a thought or two. But Russ, where does trust come into play when dealing with promoting to a supervisory position?
Where I would say where it really comes in and where it really rings home is that you have to be a good enough supervisor that you can trust those people that you're supervising. If you've provided them with the equipment, and that's not always up to you, but also the training, also, all the observation that they need, and all of the other things that they need to do an effective job, that's where you should be able to trust them. That's where you should be able to take that trust that you've got and give them final authority. They have to have, the authority, the wherewithal to be running that unit. And so you can't be there in a position where you've decided that you're going to marginalize them and micromanage everything that they do, because that's what happens when we don't have that trust. Now, to a degree, that trust has to be earned. They have to have things like experience. They have to have the training. They have to have the background, and they have to have proven themselves, right? But even those ones that are new that haven't done all of that, we still have to, give them that little trust bauble and send them out there and tell them what to do and have them, under our observation and with, good communication, good set of operating principles for them to go on and start letting them get their feet wet and starting to produce and be effective at what they're doing. Sometimes we might have to pull them back a little bit, but all in all, if you're not going to trust those people, you're going to be running around like a chicken with your head cut off, and you're going to marginalize them, and then they're going to be up in arms, right? Because they're going to say that you're not letting them do anything, you're not letting them carry the water, you're not letting them carry the load, and you're impinging on the actual safety and security of that unit. Further than that, you've just proved yourself to be a micromanager, and that you really can't cut it as an effective supervisor.
Man, what's your thoughts on that, Connie, when it comes to the trust?
I mean, I think trust is, going in knowing that it's going to take some time to cultivate relationships where trust is a possibility, right? Like, I think as you walk in, you just have to know or be able to trust that people are going to do the job that they're hired for, right? And as a supervisor, if they're not, then it is your responsibility to correct the behavior that doesn't align with your expectations. But I think it's understanding that trust is not something you're going to walk into automatically, that over a period of time, you'll build relationships. You'll have opportunities where you can give certain tasks, you can delegate certain things to staff. And then when they show you that they can do it, like that's sort of how it builds. Because unless you're establishing, and I think, as to some degree, as a supervisor, you have to kind of allow people in to get to know you a little bit, because they get to see whether or not they can trust you, right? Because that trust is a two-way street. And when people don't know you, we're automatically going to be skeptical and not necessarily trust. I think the other thing you want to make sure in this building of trust is that you're being truthful, right? Because the moment they catch you up in a lie or something that's not quite the whole story, right? Like the ability to build trust with that person is completely gone. And it's not until, and I don't know that you can redeem that, right? So I think just really being intentional about building relationship, showing that one you can trust by delegating probably some of those high visibility, high risk tasks to folks, and allowing them to show you that they can deliver. And even in those instances where they may not quite deliver, I think the trust is built when you can have a productive conversation with that person and kind of coach them through the process, because then they see that you're not out to get them, but you are part of their growth and development. So I just think there's layers to where that trust comes into play. But I think once you are, if you are ever kind of caught out, like just not being truthful, just know that that trust may forever be broken. So in that supervisory space, if in fact someone asks you something and you're not sure, you're not clear, like it's always okay to say, I'm not quite sure about that. Let me get back to you. That way you don't end up giving out wrong information, which also causes folks not to trust you.
By the way, I like Patty. Hit that like button. Yeah, come on, guys. I got 7 likes here. What's going on? Hey, so real quick, I want to add on that too. Is someone asked me a while ago, how do you know you can trust somebody? You trust them, and then you figure it out. I mean, it's sad to say, but it's the truth. How do you know you can trust somebody? Trust them. You figure it out. I mean, if you're a supervisor and they're your subordinate, you have to. You got to give it a shot. You got to empower them and be constructive if they have to learn. But, the last thing you want to do is micromanage them, which is the opposite side of trust. So if I'm a supervisor and I'm coming in not trusting the front line because maybe I'm insecure or I'm looking for perfection when nobody's perfect, the problem is you don't want to go in being a supervisor going right to micromanaging. You're going to have to, put that trust out there. So again, if you're a supervisor, you're going in how do I know if I can trust the people doing the job? At first, you have to trust them and like, see where their areas of strengths are going to be. Now, I also want to say something right now, too. As a supervisor, you will know your people. And I think Connie and Russ kind of put them in the areas of where they're gifted and if possible and play the position. Like if you could have, me and Connie, I think I mentioned this before, too, is that you could have 5 talented players and that's great. But if they're in the wrong position, they suck. You know what I mean? So you want them to have trust in you. Well, then they're going to have to trust in the decisions you make that align with their most potential, with their greatest potential. I think that matters too, because what's the best way to be effective is how I lead my people. So having said that, if you guys are great in these areas, I want to keep that going. I want to position you well. So one is you continue to grow and continue to move forward, but also the team grows, the team builds, and, we get to reach leaders, future potential, all that stuff. But I think the trust also comes through actions and behaviors way beyond intent. So I don't really care how you verbalize your intent. What I care is what do I see in front of me? It's like, I told you, I'll tell you a story one day with my daughter. We're playing Mario Party. It's going a few years ago. And, we both worked very hard. I'm 40-something years old, but I still worked hard in playing the game. And so did she. And at the time, she was maybe 6. And there was a decision at the end of the game where I had the option to buy a star from her. But see, how the game works is when I buy the star, it's really stealing it from her. And it would be a loss. If I took the star from her, it would be a loss. So there was dialogue here. This wasn't something that was an easy decision to make. Talk to the wife, and I said, "Hey, what do we do here? Like, I mean, do I buy the star and teach my daughter what it's like to be in a fair world, or do I or do I let her win, and give her this false victory?" So my wife, of course, goes, "Well, you got to build confidence. You got to let her win." And I was like, "Well, I want to win. I don't even know why the hell I even asked you the question. You're never on my side." And then we went into a big fight. That was a whole other thing. Started in the kitchen, worked its way down to the bedroom. Whole time Mia's waiting to continue the game, and we're telling her how she's destroying the family. No, I'm kidding. The other part's just added on. But anyway, so I go back in. Now she's behind me, my daughter, and so we could do a poll on this one, but the choice I made, and it is a tough decision, Patty, it is. But let me tell you the choice I made. The choice I made is something that Russ would have taught me, and Connie was all for this. You take that star. You let this kid learn. This is what you do as a father. You make her learn that world isn't fair. Sometimes you're going to lose, and deal with it. And I think that's a quote in Connie's upcoming motivational book. And, so anyway, I bought the star, and there was no more roles for her. Game was over, and I knew she was upset. I didn't want to look around. I mean, 6-year-olds can be scary, and 6 or 5, I forget. But, and I knew she was pissed, guys. I mean, I knew there was silent anger, and there was tears coming down her face, but she kept it like she looked like Russ during an unsuccessful search. I mean, she was.
There are no unsuccessful searches.
Anyway, and I think Connie and Russ are pretty much familiar with this ending because it was quiet in the house. Game was going off, and my daughter goes, this is how she dealt with it. She goes, "Daddy, it's all well and good. Wait till you go to sleep." And I'll never forget that because I don't know what she meant. I don't even know if she knew. Damn YouTube. Who knows what she knew? But the point is, guys, the reason why I say this story is that my daughter did not trust me at that day to make the right decision. My wife did not trust me to make the right decision. So for a moment, I lost that trust. And for a while, my daughter did not want to play Mario Party with me again. Because again, now that trust led to the fact that we lost quality time. Had I gave her the star and just kind of dealt with it, we would have played more often. And so I think as a supervisor, the best way to go to do trust is really, it's not about what you intend to do. It's about what you do, your behavior. At the end of the day, I could tell my daughter, I did this for you so you can learn. But at the end of the day, my actions say something different to her. So you have to remember, guys, your intentions mean very little if your actions show them something else. And that's my lesson for the day. And yes, adversity does build character, Andre, yes. But a 5-year-old does not know what adversity means and character means. So they just build animosity. You know what I mean? And they know what that word means. Hey, So let's go. Anything in closing? What do you got, Russ? And we're going to be trying to do this every Thursday. We're going to try to do it around 8:30, and then hopefully we start building more of a crowd. But either way, quality over quantity, 100%. So, hey, Russ, what do you got?
So, hey, guys, every time that we're on here, every time we're doing these live, the more questions you've got for us, the better. Also, remember to like and subscribe and do all those things. And not just Tier Talk, but, anything that happens in the realm of Keepers of Chaos. The more you can you can't really necessarily share from there, but you can, take and invite people that are also in your department and so forth to there. Anything that I've got that anyone asks me to be able to share out from there, I put it on my personal page so they can put it out from there. Just every little bit helps. Every time you like something, every time you share something, every time you mention it at work, every time you mention it to your training department, it does go toward helping us, serve you all better. And corrections is tough enough without having any support. So we're here to try and add some to your support system.
I love this compliment before we go to Connie. Damn, you guys should get paid to talk, be on a talk show. I wish, guys, that maybe one day, but thank you. See you Thursday. Yes, and guys, I think maybe me and Russ, I know Connie's weekends are tough, but obviously she's always welcome. We may do one probably Friday night, tomorrow night. We'll figure out how it goes. It depends on Russ's schedule. But yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool compliment, right, Connie? Talk show?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts, Connie, on closing?
In closing, I mean, I always have a good time when we get together and just talk and just have a good time with each other. I mean, and I really do appreciate all the engagement from the audience, all the questions that are being asked and the follow-ups and just them allowing us into their world, into their thoughts, into the things that they're experiencing in facilities, and allowing us to kind of be that, that guide or that the ones that are sort of pouring our experiences. We are open to you guys. Anything you guys want to know that we feed off each other, right? Because typically, Russ will have like this strong stance, and I'm like, I wonder if that's where my mind is at, right? And like I'm always like, I feel like it's just a learning journey for us all, and it's not just you guys. So I appreciate the learning that I get from all of you and everyone who's here and who takes the time out at night to be here. And I'll try to stay awake so that I can, participate. I'm sorry, guys.
You were up. Yeah. Hey, I actually going to use this one tomorrow. So for my quote for tomorrow, I'm going to do building trust as a supervisor. I thought that was pretty good. Oh, you know what? Alicia makes a good point real quick before we go to close. Guys, we may give advice that people may feel it's about corrections. It's not. She says a lot of our experiences are transferable to other industries. And I think that's pretty cool. I mean, I think so. If you guys want to watch it, you never know. I mean, if there's something you can pick up that applies to your world, Alicia's always translate in both worlds for us. And she's telling us, hey, Gangi, I do this at my job, or, hey, you should try this at your job, and it does connect, because sometimes I feel corrections is forgotten, so we don't get a lot of these practices. So I think this is pretty cool to kind of have this exchange. And guys, so before we come to close, just want to say, first off, yes, I agree. I love the audience. I love the interaction. If we could do this more, that would be great, because to me, that's better than doing prepared shows, because in prepared shows, we kind of know where it's going, and here we never do. Who knew surgeons and inmates were similar? Okay, whoa, watch out. Don't get in trouble, Alicia. You know what I mean? Don't get in trouble there. I'm sure there's some similarities. And guys, I'll be out in LA May 21st or wherever it is, Long Beach, to do that conference. Then me and Connie, that same week, we'll be in Atlantic City speaking at MASCA. So if you guys are around the area, we'll promote it soon, give you guys some more information. But, we'll be there for hospitality night, and we get to hang out with everybody. We get to chat. And I think that's pretty cool. You get to see us outside of the element. I mean, I got pictures of me and Russ. We went to Vegas. A lot of people actually.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
But I will tell you one thing. A lot of people, when they watch this, they think that Russ is actually taller than me, and they're right, actually. They're right. There was nowhere I was going with that. So yeah, so guys, so again, it's great to have the community. I appreciate you guys. As always, guys, the show is Tier Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's gonna notify you every time I post a video. Oh, no, wait, hold on, Alicia, hold on. I caught your question at the end. In AC, it's only gonna be me and Connie. But we're gonna try to get Russ involved in more events. Russ got a new job and trying to get him on a schedule. Maybe in the summertime we could probably do more. But again, it all goes by on Russ's availability as well. Come on to Cali, Anthony. 80 today. It's beautiful. Yeah. By me, it's not that bad. It was like 55 or 60. All right, guys. Love you guys. Stay safe. Take care, Chuck. Take care, Blackjack, Alicia, Patty, Tiger Claw, Andre, the whole crew, Xefiel. Love you guys. Stay safe.